End of the show. Let's bring in Bryce Eldridge. Let's welcome in Lee Jung-Hoo from Rocky Mountain, North Carolina. He wears number 65, Landon Root.
Well, I appreciate it, Bill. I always enjoy talking to you.
Let's welcome in Wade Boggs. Let's bring in Will the Thrill. He's the ace of the staff. Let's welcome in Logan Webb. Logan, how are you today?
Hi, I'm doing good. Good to be on here.
Welcome to Extra Innings with Bill Laskey.
Giants sweep the LA Dodgers.
Sponsored by Lunardi's Markets of the Bay Area. Quite simply the best. Right here on your exclusive home of the San Francisco Giants. KNBR, the sports leader.
Pitch. There's a high drive deep down the right field line toward the corner and gone on an 0-2 pitch. 2 strikes to count, and he threw him a hanging splitter.
Welcome into a Sunday edition of the Extra Inning Post-Game Show, and you always wonder when you're going to have one of these games, and boy, today was just an ugly, ugly game, and I've never seen an inning like the 6th inning. Walk, a wild pitch, a walk, a hit by pitch, a single, plus an error. Wow. As John Miller would say, that was a nightmare. What a nightmare inning. And you're talking about some veteran pitchers throwing. Sam Hedges and JT Brubaker just couldn't throw strikes. And when they did, had an 0-2 hit by pitch. When you look at what Sam Hedges has done, 29 and a third innings pitched, he's walked 22 and hit 3 by pitch. I would have never thought that unless I looked it up. And those numbers right there are pitiful for a veteran pitcher, not a young pitcher. Blake Tidwell, on the other hand, pretty much did the same. 5 walks. 5 walks. The Giants issued 10 walks today. 10 free passes. 10 of them. 8 of them scored. That's right. 8 out of the 10 scored. For the first 5 innings, it was a fun game. Rafael Devers hits a bomb into the water. The Giants are up 7-6 in 5. And then everything came falling down fast in that 6th inning. Here's a stat for you. The Giants lost today 13-7. The most runs allowed in a game since 1901, where they have not allowed 10 hits. Think about that. 1901. They scored 13 runs on 9 hits. That's the most runs allowed without getting 10 hits. That's a stat for you. That's a stat right there for you. I got some more stats for you. The Giants are 4-10 in the month of August. They haven't won a series since July 27th, 28th, and 29th against the Brewers. They went on that last road trip. They went 2-5 against San Diego and Texas. And the homestand here, where they play 9 games, they went 3-6. Yes, 3-6 in a 9-game homestand. They won 1 game each against Detroit, Houston, and Colorado. And I really felt today was going to be a good day. I really felt after yesterday was a good played game. They win 7-1. Logan Webb threw well. The defense played well. Good hitting. Everything went well. And even today for 5 innings, I felt, hey, they're going to pull this out. And then disaster struck. And then just in disaster in the 6th inning, the 7th inning, with Keaton Wynn throwing an 0-2 pitch on the inner part of the plate, and Brett Sullivan hit it for a home run, a 3-run home run, just to spark it a little more. The pitching was pitiful. No question about it. Tidwell, Hedges, Brubaker, San Martin, 2/3 of an inning, Wynn for 2/3 of an inning, and Harrison Foley just kind of cleaned it up. But these are the kind of games where you just start looking, is the bullpen tired? Are they using Hedges and Brubaker too much? Are they not using everybody in a bullpen? It seems like it. Brubaker threw 13 pitches, 4 for strikes. Hedges threw 30 pitches, 16 for strikes. So there isn't good pitching in the bullpen. We knew this from the very beginning. But today, frosting on the cake, you would say, because this really, really showed you how much that bullpen needs help. And they need help for another probably 6-7 weeks. It was just a disastrous 6th inning, a disastrous home run ball in the 7th, and the Giants walked off that field losing 13-7. And the Rockies take that 7th win out of 13 games, so they're 7-6. First time the Giants have lost to the Rockies in a series since 2020. So these numbers are going to get worse. We know that, but we're all Giants fans. We want to see them do better. We want to see better pitching. We want to see Blade Tidwell throw like he did for 2 straight starts. Today, he just didn't have it. He tried to sweep 21 times. It didn't work. He tried a fastball 15 times. It didn't work. At one time, though, he really did. In the 3rd and 4th inning, had 2 1-2-3 innings. Then in the 5th inning, everything just couldn't get anything going. A walk, a double, and he was out. But it was just that kind of game. It was this kind of that game where you just look at the pitching and you scratch your head and go, wow, they just gave him that game. Because that's what you do when you walk 10 hitters. 10 hitters they walked. 10 90-foot freebies. And a couple hit by pitch. The other one that was kind of confusing in that 6th inning was a ball that got under Kavanaugh, and J.T. Brubaker wasn't even pointing where it was, and that's what you're supposed to say as a pitcher. You're supposed to point and holler, the ball's under you, the ball's under you, and he didn't do anything, and Kavanaugh couldn't find it, and they steal home. Because really it was a heads-up play. Very heads-up play. But that's what happens. That's what happens in these games because you get lethargic. The defense is always on their heels. The defense can't play that quick when you're walking guys. You're out there, it seemed like that 6th inning was like 45 minutes. It was just way too long, and nobody was challenging hitters. So it was an ugly game to end a 9-game homestand. But this homestand wasn't one of the best. 3 wins, 6 losses. Now they're flying to Cleveland. They're now playing 2 teams that are fighting for a wild card position. They play Cleveland 3. Then they go on to Boston for 3. And somehow, some way, they got to get some pitching. Somehow, some way, this bullpen's got to get better. And I don't know how you're going to do it when these starting pitchers are only going 4 or 5 innings because you're burning guys out down there. Today, the Giants used 7 pitchers. 7. Matter of fact, there was 13 pitchers used in this game. Colorado didn't do that great. Hughes gave up 7 earned runs. You thought that was it. You really felt that that game was over. I really did. After 5 innings, I'm like, okay, we added a run. This is the way it's going to go. We got to keep pushing forward here. It just didn't happen. Yeah. I'm a Giants fan, and I want to be a Giants fan, and I do cheer this team. But when you see this pathetic pitching, as an ex-big league pitcher, I shake my head. Because if you can't throw, don't go in the bullpen. Say your arm's sore, say your arm's tired. Don't go out there 50-50. And I think both Hedges and Brubaker are tired. That's how I felt watching him pitch today. 415-808-KBR. Get on the phone lines. Let's hear what you have to say because I'm eager to hear what Giants fans have to say in watching this pitiful Sunday afternoon game at Oracle. I'm Bill Laskey. We're going to be right back on KBR, the sports leader.
Bill is back.
Fired up, bringing it, all excited.
This is KNBR Extra Innings with Bill Laskey.
Sponsored by Lenardi's Markets of the Bay Area. Quite simply, the best.
Listen on your Google Home smart speaker by saying play KNBR.
Yeah, it was sloppy. It was more, no discredit to some of the great work position players. Rafi starts the game with great base running. Obviously, the highlight was the home run, but for me, with that, some of their guys I think are really promising athletes, and they had good at bats, but it had more the feel of a lower level, a junior college game, as opposed to a big league game with how some of the things transpired. And I was a JUCO guy, so I'm not disrespecting junior college.
Back on the Extra Inning post-game show, Tony Vitello dropping a junior college game on you right there. And if you're going back in time, you could probably drop junior college. I think junior college does pitch better than what they did today. I think you got to go back to high school because that's what you saw today. A lot of misses, ball fours, 10 walks, 10 free passes, a couple hit by pitch. The Giants just had one of their ugliest games this year, and that's all you can do. Hopefully they can turn the corner, get on a flight to Cleveland, and have some kind of energy against this Cleveland Guardian team for 3 games, and that's starting Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Just over the look of the 9-game homestand, some guys that hit the ball well and some guys that didn't. If I told you Basabe was your best hitter, you would say, no way, Bill. Yes, he was. Basabe was 9 for 32 in that 9-game homestand. You got to look at Christian Koss, 8 for 33. Gilbert, 8 for 28. Then you go down to Devers, who was 7 for 33. Eldritch, 6 for 33, and then it kind of dropped off from there. But yeah, I was really surprised to see Basabe have 9 hits in this 9-game homestand, and he's been playing good second base. I really feel he's filled in very well, and you just got to get some better at bats from some of these guys. You just have to, and they did for 5 innings. They played very well, getting 7 runs. And just like Tony said, Rafael Devers busting his tail in the first inning. He hit that double down the left field line. Bryce Eldridge comes in with a nice base hit to get the first run. And then the second inning, Devers, man, he hit the hell out of that ball, that 3-run home run, 380 feet to right field, a 3-2 curveball, 8 pitches. He fouled off a few of them. And then he nailed his 25th home run on the year. And he's got 69 RBIs. So a good day by Rafael Devers. He goes 2 for 5. And it just didn't, after the 5th inning, you could tell it was just a dead game from there. They just could not even put anything together. Once you gave up 4 runs in the top of the 6th, in the 7th, you opened up the game to 13-7. And the Giants just couldn't muster anything for the last 4 innings. So you turn the page and move on. A tough homestand going 3-6. This is what we're going to see the next couple months, a good month and a half left, and this is what we have to discuss and find out who can be a big leaguer, who can, and some of these guys might be getting tired out of the bullpen. They've been used a lot. When you look at Hedges, 36 games, JT Brubaker, 39 games. He's got to use some other arms down there. Of course, you saw Harris, Foley, and Wynn, San Martin. But there's got to be somebody that can, stand up in the heated battles in those middle innings. And you got to push these starters a little farther. That's about where that ends. All right, 415-808-KBR. Let's have some fun today. Let's go out to Glenn. He's in Visalia. Glenn, you're on with Bill Laskey, a depressing homestand. But let's have some fun. Glenn, what's going on?
Bill, first of all, the most important thing, I love your honesty. I love your passion. I love that you respect the game and that you're going to be honest to us. That's the most important thing, Bill. Thank you. Now, Bill,
I appreciate that, Glenn.
Now, Bill, the only thing that I'm looking forward is 9/27. After that, the misery will be over. And
what's 9/27, the final game of the year? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't quite catch that, but now I caught it. Okay, I got you now, Glenn.
The misery will be over. But Bill, I'm looking for this. I got hope that the Giants can win 12 more games, Bill. If they win 12 more games, they cannot lose 100 games. My goal is that they win 63 games, Bill. It's doable,
Okay.
Bill.
It's doable. It is. It's doable. And the thing is, let me ask you this, Glenn. with all the players moving in, moving out, tell me a couple young players on this roster that you want to see progress into that 2027 season where they might be on this roster.
I don't know them that well, Bill, so I'm going to
Okay.
let you decide that. But,
All right.
but you know,
That's fair. That's fair, Glenn.
What do you think? Cox, don't you think he has his time? I don't know.
Well, you know, Christian Koss is, you know, if you think about Christian Koss, he didn't really play for the first month of the year, and then he went to AAA, broke his wrist. He is filling in defensively fine. He's starting to hit the ball a little bit better. Like I said, he was 8 for 33 on the homestand. Still strikes out a lot. We know that. Utility player, no doubt. He's not a starting player. A lot of people, you know, because his age, he's 28 years old. Is he the future, or is there some young guys in AAA? Because you got A-ball, AA, you got a lot of young infielders that are moving up, but they're not ready for the big league level. And I think that's the other reason for Buddy Kennedy also. Buddy Kennedy isn't the future of this team. He's 27 years old. They're filling in holes right now, Glenn, until a couple of things open up on the roster, and then you'll see some changes. Hopefully Willie Adames will get back in the lineup. I think that's the main one. And, you know, you just start thinking down the road, what could help this team and get better? And I think that's going to be the big question here in the next month and a half, if they're going to make more changes, if they're going to give more opportunities to some younger guys. And I think we just got to wait and find out, because this is a roster of 40 players, and I don't know how many spots are open. You also have Marcelo Meyer, who got traded from the Red Sox, which most likely he will be on this roster on this next road trip. And we're going to see what he does and see what position he plays, if it's going to be second base, third base, shortstop. But we'll definitely see him, because he is a top prospect. And, you know, he traded Miller for him, and he was a big, big prospect with the Boston Red Sox, a 4th pick overall in a draft. He has a lot of talent. And these are just names that I can keep throwing at you, Glenn, and we'll see if any of them stick, and we'll see if they can compete at the big league level.
Bill, I think, my friend, keep your honesty up. I always appreciate.
Thanks, Glenn. You have a good Sunday, my friend. It's always a pleasure talking to you. Let's go to David. He's in Newcastle. David, you're on an extra inning post-game show. Not a good game today, but you know what? They played good for 5 innings. That's the least I can tell you, David.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm at too, Bill. Nice to call in. I haven't been with you for a couple of seasons. So anyway, look, it's all boiled. Today, I just am tired of what I see out of the pitchers right now. I've been seeing it for quite a while. Sometimes not, sometimes more. Today was kind of really totally exposed. I'm not seeing full use of their bodies. I thought Harris was finished up really well. He is really putting it out. I think he's giving him, you know, putting in 99-100% every pitch. I'm not seeing something that I relate to my own goals and ideals, and that is I want every game. If I was there, I want to play every game like it's the Indy 500. That's what I want. Brew Baker just really burned me all the way to the ground. Even the starting pitcher, I'm not seeing him use his full body. You know, you could go out there with a tape measure and see how far his lead foot goes and drops.
Yeah, you're talking about the motion, right? You're talking about how they fluent their motion, where they close the front shoulder, how they reach out. Yeah, I'm right there with you. Sometimes when I'm watching the windup or the stretch, it doesn't seem like they're pushing off that back leg enough. You see them pushing off, but there's got to be better drive there, David. I think that's what you're trying to say.
You know, and look, when I moved up here to Sierra, I'm the guy that conditions endurance horses. I've talked to you before. And when I first moved up here, and I do all my conditioning up in all the canyons up here and in the heat, by the way, to get ready, the first thing that happened is my pelvis just popped. I'm 77 years old now, and I could still get up and get on a horse, and I could ride a long ways right now. I do a lot of things totally exhausted. So I'm limited in what I can say because I'm not going to the ballpark. I'm not going there 2 or 3 hours ahead of time to watch how everybody's doing batting practice or the pitcher's warming up. So I'm limited and kind of not qualified totally to make certain comments because I'm not there to watch and to really fuel my opinions. Okay, so I'm limited. But what I'm seeing on television today was just exposed really the big sore wound, and that is I'm not seeing a lot of our pitchers, except for Harris, that is really might have learned a lot about pitching from Timmy Jim. And and Timmy had to really use every last hair on his head to get that ball where he wanted to go. And
there was a lot of pitchers back then, David. If you remember, Banderson Bumgarner did the same. He had a real good motion where that front shoulder closed and it opened up, and the follow through was always there. I'm right there with you with some of the motions, and it's more or less how you push and how you fire, right? You get set, you're on your back foot, and then you're going, and then all of a sudden you got to come through with that arm. I didn't see much of that. That's why in my open, I just thought maybe Sam Hedges and JT Brubaker were trying to push themselves. They did 2 days ago. They've been pitching a lot lately. Maybe they were tired. But if they're tired, they got to tell that pitching coach, I need a day. I need another day. And if they don't, this is what you're going to get. Guys aiming the ball, not 100% with a fastball, and they're trying to do things with breaking balls where they're spinning and they're not crisp. And that's what you saw today. The walks were pathetic.
This falls squarely in the lap, and I'll leave you with this, squarely in the lap of who's coaching these people. They've had plenty of time. They've had this whole year to straighten. Now, you can only do so much in a short amount of time, right? But it is in his lap, whoever he is. I don't know this guy. I mean,
yeah, it's a message. It's a pitching coach message. You got a couple other pitching coaches with him, but it's really what you can do with them in between games and how much they can throw on the side. And you can do a lot of shadow throws. If you remember, Jeremy Alfelt used to take a Sandy or a sock and make it a ball and go through his motion, so his motion was repetition. There are so many things that you can do to build up arm speed. The heavy balls, they got so many different stretching exercises. I just thought today they had some dead arms and they tried to do too much and it just didn't work. But David, you made some great points because the pitchers do need to push a little bit more and give it a little more effort. But hey, thanks for the call. I really appreciate your time on a Sunday. All right, we're going to take a quick break. 415-808-KNBR. I'd love to hear you talk. Give me a call. We got a few on hold, but we're going to continue to keep talking Giants baseball. Got a good little show lined up. Michael Monreal is going to join me later in the show. Of course, he does the SF Giants Digest. He does a great job on his podcast. And then later on today, I sat down with Joe West on Friday, and Joe West, of course, the number one umpire in baseball. He umpired in 43 seasons, 5,460 games. That's right. And I sat down with Joe West, and of course, we all remember Joe West and Madison Bumgarner staring each other down. We did talk about that, so you'll have to wait for that once I get that interview up later in the show. I'm Bill Laskey. We'll take a quick break. Like I said, 415-808-KNBR. Give me a call. We'll talk more baseball right here on KNBR, the sports leader.
The game may be over, but we know you want to talk more ball. So KNBR Extra Innings with Bill Laskey continues.
Sponsored by Lenardi's Markets of the Bay Area. Quite simply, the best.
We are KNBR 104.5 and 6.8, the sports leader.
Swinging a line drive, base hit, left field. 1 run scores. Run is overrun by Hill. 2-run score. Into second goes Moniak. And now the Rockies have scored 2 more times on 1 pitch to Mickey Moniak.
Back on KNBR with Bill Laskey. The only hit in that 6th inning was Mickey Moniak hitting a ball out to left field. Turner Hill kind of overran it and ended up going to second base, and a fly ball by Casilla. Willie Castro, I should say. Willie Castro popped it up to end that inning. But they had 9 guys to go to that plate. 9 hitters, 4 walk, 1 hit by pitch, and 1 base hit. And the Colorado Rockies scored 4 runs in that game. And I keep going back to walks. Of course, I was a pitcher for many years. Walks haunt you. You cannot walk hitters in the big leagues. It will just devour you. And that's what happened today. They walked 10 hitters today. 8 of them scored. So if you think about that, 8 runners you gave up, walked 10, and you gave 8 runs up on walks. Those are 8 runs. And you lost this game 13-7. So you think about that, and you think about challenging hitters a little bit more, getting into strike zone a little bit more, and they're going to have to do this. These young pitchers are going to have to get on the horse and ride it, go in there and challenge these guys. I've said that about Landon Roop. He's got outstanding stuff, electric stuff. Challenge hitters. Get in there and challenge hitters. I'd rather you give up a base hit than a walk. Every pitching coach will say that. All right, they're going to go to Cleveland. They're flying to Cleveland right now. Tuesday's game right here on KNBR 340 first pitch. Carson Wisenhunt on the hill. He's 3-3 with a 6.1 earned run average. Won his last game against Houston where he went 5 2/3 innings, gave up 4 hits, 1 earned run against Foster Griffith, a left-hander, and he's having a great year for the Guardians. Of course, he got picked up by Washington, the Nationals. He got traded over there. He was 12-3 with the Nationals with 3.06. That was in 2026, and then now he's 1-1 with the Guardians, who's got a 6-point earned run average. Threw against Detroit, beat Detroit going 5 innings. He only gave up 1 earned run. The Mets beat him up pretty good. 4 innings, 7 hits, 5 earned runs. And then Wednesday, they have a TBA, but I'm believing that's probably going to be Adrian Hauser against Parker Misick. Parker Misick, another left-hander, 9-7 with a 2.5 earned run average for the Guardians. And then on Thursday, a 10-10 game. Of course, we're in Cleveland, Midwest time. Landon Roop's on the hill, 7-12 with a 4.3 against Gavin Williams, a right-hander. He's 11-7 with a 3.7 earned run average. So those are your pitching probables as they're off to Cleveland. They'll have a day off tomorrow, and then first pitch on Tuesday at 3:40. All right, let's get back to the phone lines. Let's go to Jeff. He's in Davis. Jeff, you're on the Next Earning Post-Game Show. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on, Mr. Laskey.
Well, tell me what you thought of today's game, and what do you see in the forecast for the Giants, Jeff?
Well, I was going to ask you about their outfielding core. I've been wondering about them. Thought you might want to talk about something different than pitching for a while.
Well, they got a lot of youth now. You got Turner Hill up. You got Barracuda up. You have Cox and Gilbert in center field. Most likely you're going to see Jung-Hoo Lee in right field for the rest of the year. He's been playing right field outstanding. It looks like he might use Cox and Gilbert lefty-righty type thing as a platoon. It's going to be interesting in seeing how many at-bats Barracuda is going to get. He really didn't come up and light it up. Hit the ball pretty hard while he was here. He was only had, when you're looking at numbers, he was only 3 for 12 since he's been back up, 2 for 8 against the Rockies. But overall, just really hasn't been playing that much. And, of course, he's got to get better on the defensive side, Jeff. A lot of things on the Giants have to get better on fundamentals.
Yeah. I was thinking the defense needed some improvement, but I heard Kruko talking about Gilbert the other day and his at bats, and I was wondering if you saw any of these guys. You see any Jeffrey Leonards or Larry Herndons coming up here?
Well, power numbers, no. I think Barracuda's probably the only one you're going to see power numbers. Of course, Gilbert hit his 6th home run yesterday. He's got 6 home runs with 29 RBIs. Your outfield really doesn't have much in home run numbers. Jung-Hoo Lee's got only 9 home runs. There really isn't any power numbers out there. I think what you're seeing from Gilbert and Cox are more defensive players and maybe leadoff hitters that get on, set the table kind of thing. We really don't know that much about Turner Hill. He hit really well in AAA. Got schooled on a couple pitches that were up in the zone where they elevated the fastball by him. He's going to learn. But all these guys are young. That's the thing, Jeff, when you're looking at the outfield and outfield depth, they're all young players. So what we see is what we're going to get, and we're going to see if they can adjust to it.
All right. Thank you so much for taking my call. I appreciate that.
Have a good day, Jeff. Thank you. Let's go up to Portland and talk to Greg. Greg, you're on with Bill Laskey on a Sunday. How are you?
I'm okay, Bill. Let me get you up the speaker here.
Well, you came down and saw the Astros play. Those were a couple of really interesting games. All 3 of them, I thought.
Yeah,
were good games.
I did, and I wanted to talk about that to begin with. Saw Weisenhut and the 4-1 win on Tuesday night, and then the next day saw what
2-1
we've seen so many times.
Yeah, 2-1. Houston
loss.
won that last one.
Yeah.
What'd you think of that Astros team? Do you think they're strong enough to win that AL West?
I think they are, because it is a division that is, from my observation, winnable. Not a lot of great teams in it. It's not the American League East, and Houston has a great organization. They have players that play well. They have a winning tradition. Well,
you got to be impressed with Yordan Alvarez. That guy's a Triple Crown winner. He hit everything hard in that 3-game series, and looking at the numbers, already over 35 home runs, close to 100 RBIs. He's just a menace in that lineup, man. Every time he came up, the pitchers were looking to see when he was on deck, because, man, he's gonna be a tough out, and that's one player that might get the 4 fingers every time up, just like they did to Barry Bonds once they get to the playoffs or they get into September baseball. I would believe to walk him instead of letting him hit. What about you?
I would just see what the situation is with him.
Of course.
But yeah, you do that when you need to. But they've also got players like Smith. They produce
Cam
players.
Smith.
They develop players. They take players like Dubon and take him, from a guy that drove me crazy to a guy that goes to the All-Star game and makes me look, foolish. Smith beat us, and he's a great player. He's kind of like Bracota, but he's with Houston and not with San Francisco. So, this segues into the criticisms and the frustrations I have now as a fan, and I know a little about baseball, but we have young players that don't know how to play the game right. So it doesn't matter how good they are or how not good they are. They're not getting coached properly. And our pitching is atrocious. Here's some other statistics. This team in 55 games has only won once after trailing going into the 6th and deeper. 1 in 54. Okay? They're in the bottom 3 for losing leads in the 8th or 9th. I think the Angels are still ahead of them.
No, you're right. Those numbers aren't lying, no doubt, Greg. And you heard the number that I said. Since 1901, they never lost to a team that didn't have 10 hits and scored 13 runs. I mean,
and they're in the bottom 3 for walk-off losses.
Records. Yeah. I knew that one too.
So,
it's dismal right now. It's dismal, and you see a good game yesterday, but they can't put 2 or 3 together. And that's, I think, one of the biggest, takeaways maybe from this team, the consistency, not winning a series yet from a team. and we're already in August 16th. I just don't see them sweeping anybody. I'm hoping that they can win a series. Like I said, last time they won a series was the end of July, and you're looking at 4-10 in the month of August. It's not getting any better.
Bill, what do you think of Keaton Wynn? I saw Keaton Wynn lose that 2-1 game, and today I saw him do the same thing. I have no confidence in him at all, and he's been here a while. What do you think of him?
Yeah. Well, he pitched really well in the beginning of the year, and then he pitched 3 days in a row, and he injured his elbow, and he's been slowly coming back. Really what he has is a fastball and a split finger. And if I'm a hitter, I'm looking fastball or split finger. The slider isn't dipping. The slider's more of a slurve. It's not a good pitch for him. I just think a 2-pitch mix, he's not throwing velocity anymore. He used to be in the mid-90s, high 90s. He's not there anymore. The split finger today was okay, but he throws it a lot for balls. And if you're a hitter, Greg, and you're seeing a split finger, if it's low, you keep it. You don't even let it swing. If it's low, you let it go, as they say. But that 0-2 pitch, man, you got to be kidding me. The 0-2 pitch to Brett Sullivan, he missed his location. That ball was supposed to be outside. He threw it down and in, and Sullivan knocked it out of the yard. Those are the misses when I'm watching a game. Those are the misses that I get upset about. Hit your target or off the corner. Hit your target, miss a little bit. But when you're going outside corner and you throw a ball inside, that's on the pitcher. That's on focus. That's on concentration. And that's what they didn't do that at all today. That sixth inning was a blur to me because it just seemed like they just gave that game away right then.
Yeah, and how many times have we seen our pitchers, it doesn't matter who, even Webb, they've got 2 strikes on these guys, 0-2, and they let, I'm going to use the fishing analogy, they let them wiggle off the hook, and
yeah,
it
frustrates me when, just like you said, you go 0-2, and next thing you know, it's 3-2. And the pitchers aren't even close. I could see if you're edging a corner or you elevate a fastball, things like that, but they're missing completely. And then the 3-2 pitches, I got to get it in. I got to force this pitch in. That's not pitching. And to have confidence out there, Greg, you know this, a pitcher's got to have confidence to throw any pitch at any time in the big leagues. And once you get to this spot, you should be able to do that and not just go, okay, it's 3-2, I got to throw a fastball. You can't do that. And Logan Webb's a perfect example. Yesterday, I was looking at this, and I had to look at it twice. He threw more cross-seam fastballs ever in a game. He threw 24 of them. I've never seen him throw that many cross-seam fastballs. He struck out 4 guys with it, that crossing, that elevated fastball. The other thing, 19 cutters. Those were his 2 top pitches yesterday. Sweepers and sinkers, the 2 pitches that he always threw, were way down in the count. So he is getting better in his pitch selection and how he's moving forward with new pitches. Can he talk to pitchers about that? Can he help Landon Roop? Can he help Blade Tidwell? I'm hoping, because if they're seeing what he does and how he's producing and getting better at 29 years old, why wouldn't I sit next to him in the locker room and talk to him? Why wouldn't I go out to his bullpens and watch him pitch? Why wouldn't I just watch every pitch he throws in a game? That's the lead guy. That's your lead runner. And his pitching staff has to start accepting this and learning from it and not saying, oh, I know, I made a mistake. Oh, I know. No, you didn't know. And you have to get better. And this pitching staff has to perform better. But we'll see, Greg. But I got to run, buddy. Thanks for the call. I appreciate your time. And I'm glad you came to San Francisco and had a good time. All right, we're going to take a quick break on the KNBR Extra Inning Post-Game Show. More coming up next right here on the Sports Leader.
You're listening to the former Giants righty. It's KNBR Extra Innings with Bill Laskey.
Sponsored by Lenardi's Markets of the Bay Area. Quite simply, the best.
Heard on your Apple HomePod by saying play KNBR.
Clean baseball, that's a touchy subject because that's hard to do, and it's inevitable. Some of the things that pop up in a game go unnoticed when you win or you get out of the jam or something like that. But yeah, the one thing that's unavoidable is usually the team that plays catch is the better team that day, and that includes on defense making the average play or dominating the average play, and on the mound you're playing catch with the catcher.
All right, back on the Extra Inning post-game show with Bill Laskey. Tony Vitello had a little team meeting after the game, and he was talking about conviction, understanding what you have to get better, and understanding about yourself more than the whole team. And I think that means a lot when he's trying to develop something here with the young players mixed in with the old players and trying to figure out what he can do to teach these players to play better baseball. Coaching staffs can coach. Players have to play. And once that game starts, it's about all those 9 players on that field and how they can play and how they can pitch and how they can hit. And for 5 innings today, the Giants were winning this game 7-6, and they were competing extremely well. And the 6th inning just fell right out of the, I don't know how you say it. I don't want to cuss on air, but it was terrible. Let's just put it that way. It was pathetic. You know, when you walk 4 guys, you hit a guy, and you only give up 1 hit, and you give up 4 runs, that is not clean baseball, and that's not good baseball. And that's really where this game just kind of went backwards. So the Giants lose today 13-7. They're now 51-73. They're 1 game ahead of the Colorado Rockies in the division for last place, and hopefully they will not get there. Hopefully they get on this plane, have a little momentum going into Cleveland, playing the Guardians, and this is something they're going to have to play some top talent teams. The Guardians and the Red Sox both are fighting for the wild card position, and this team's going to have to do something, and they're going to have to start with Carson Wisenhunt on Tuesday at 3:40 first pitch. All right, let's go to Chris. He's in Santa Clara. Chris, you're on with Bill Laskey. How are you?
Hey, Bill, I got 2 questions for you. One is, what is the relevance of having a manager who's never even been around a team that has had 80 games even on a schedule? So at least that's my best understanding, is that Tony's never even had a uniform on more than that many, I guess, games in a season. And then the second question is with regard to Cleveland. Although, you know, they're clearly disappointed. They're 5 games under 500. It's not at all where the Guardians want it to be. But they're only a game and a half out. And emotionally, a team that's disappointed but only a game and a half out for the Giants at 15 and a half back in the wild card, how does that impact the sense in the clubhouse and in the dugout?
Well, let's just go to the first one. I think it really goes to Buster Posey in hiring Tony Vitello, knowing that he had no major league experience, had no minor league experience, no coaching in professional baseball, and we all knew that. When the press conference came up, he answered every question exactly how you wanted to. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to be better. I'm going to try to fix what I don't know. But it just hasn't clicked yet. It hasn't clicked in the leadership role where this team's fighting for him. I just feel that when they get behind, there's no fight in this team. There's no drive in this team. My last caller was talking about, 1 win in the 6th, 7th inning when they're behind. They have not come back at all in those latter part innings. And then you look at the other stat he threw out there, Greg, and he said all the walk-off losses they've had. Those are things you have to somehow change. Those are some things you have to dive into a little bit harder and understand, what am I doing wrong here? And Tony Vitello just keeps saying he's doing it, but he hasn't made changes. Now, everybody says, well, Bill, look at his bullpen. Look at this. Look at this. Look at what he's had. Well, you know what? Good managers do lose. Good managers do win. But also good managers have to hold that clubhouse. And they have to have those players respect him and play hard for him. I just don't know if that's the answer right now. You look at this team at 51-73, and it's got to start from the top, right, Chris? It's got to start for each individual player. It's got to start on who's going to fight for you, who's going to be in that nine-man staff or in the 9-man lineup that's going to hit for you and push yourself and play better. Fundamentals are brutal on this team. Errors are brutal on this team. and the young players are coming up and walking into this clubhouse. Is it a good clubhouse to learn from? That's my first question. As a young player, am I learning from some of these guys? Or is it just the same coincidence? We lost. Let's go. Next thing, see you tomorrow. That's not how you win. And that's not a good stepping stone for this team if that's happening.
Interesting. What about the sense of the difference between where you are in the standings? Because it's not always necessarily your record. It's how close are you to being able to move up, right? Or unless I'm reading this wrong and it really is just about the record.
Yeah, when you're looking at the record right now, they're trying to win series. That's what they're trying to do, and haven't won since the last week of July. I say win this game tomorrow, focus on winning the next game. I coach baseball in college and high school. If you lose today, you focus a little harder tomorrow, and you focus again the next day. And if you do make mental mistakes or physical mistakes, you talk about it. You figure it out. It's a hard thing to not know what's going on in that clubhouse. I'm not in that clubhouse. I can go before the game. I'm not there after the game. I'm not there prepping the games. The coaches are in there. They're doing everything they can do to teach this. But the record right now, I don't think it's anything they're happy about. They're ashamed of it. But when you're going into Cleveland and Boston, man, they're going to take you down. They're going after your blood. They need wins. That's what both of those teams are, and I think that's what you're asking me. The teams that are in a hunt, they're not going to let the pedal to metal down. They're going to go and take your juggler out, just like what Colorado did. Colorado didn't let up, and they took it right down to them. 4 runs in that 6th inning with just 1 hit. So the good teams do that. The good teams hustle. The good teams make good plays, and right now this team isn't that way.
Thanks so much. I appreciate the insight.
All right, thanks, Chris. Let's go to Paul. He's in Arizona. Paul, you're on with Bill Laskey on a Sunday. What's going on in Arizona?
Well, it's hot. And sadly, even though I bought the big premium package from MLB, the game was blacked out here today for some reason I don't understand. But I got to listen to it on KNBR, and that, with our broadcast crew, that's always a treat. Until it wasn't. And my question is, I am just so tired of hearing these guys coming, watching them or hearing them on the radio, come in out of the bullpen and blowing it. And you see them when that door opens, and it's like, oh, this time it's this guy, or next time it's the other guy. And it's just, it just lets the air out of the whole ballpark. And my curious is there any hope that we can just lock, stock, and barrel, bring in new guys from the farm system somewhere that have a little moxie and will throw strikes?
Yeah. I think that's the biggest issue right now, the bullpen coming in, walking guys. Remember Miller? That was one of the reasons why Miller got left to go to Red Sox. He walked the leadoff hitter a lot. It's really the concentration. It's really the focus coming out of the bullpen. I just don't think they're going to make a ton of moves to put swings into 40-man roster. I think that's what the biggest issue right now is. When you move guys, you have to clear a spot for a 40-man roster to bring somebody on it. Now, when they brought up Turner Hill, a couple guys went on a 60-day IL, which cleared up a roster spot. And I think they're trying to be creative on seeing what they can bring up and a new face. Of course, you looked at Harris today. He looked a little better today. He's getting a little more comfortable. But they still keep throwing Foley out there, Brubaker and Hedges. Those are the older guys. Keaton Wynn has fallen off the table a little bit too on throwing strikes. It's really, Paul, this bullpen has just been pathetic, and they can't get anything going, and that's what we're stuck with. And the starting pitchers can't go deep in a game, so they're being used every game. Now, just don't say the Giants. That's every team. Every team's the same way. Nobody's making complete games. They're using their bullpen every day, but they're using different faces that are competing better. I think that's what you see better teams do.
Yeah, I mean, somebody's got to come in and throw a strike once in a while. And it just seems like every time somebody comes in, it goes sideways. And so I was hopeful that maybe there was something that they could do to get in a fresh arm and a kid that doesn't even know any better that can come in and throw a strike. Because as a fan, there's no hope until you see that, right? even if your starters are, getting it together, you're right. They're not going to last forever in a game.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to have somebody out there that can come in and throw strikes and at least give your team a chance. But right now, every time they bring in somebody, it's just a buzzkill.
It is, and what it is, you're playing a solid game through 5 innings today. The offense scores 7 runs. You would have thought 7 runs was plenty to win a game in the big leagues, but it's not. And here's the Colorado Rockies, who have a worse team, and they played better than the Giants, even though they got 10 walks. It's how you compete and how much extra effort you put into. After the 4 runs in that 6th inning, there was no life in this team. There was nothing in the offense. A hit here, a hit there, but there was nothing to come back in this game. When you saw them the first 5 innings, man, they were competing. They had bases loaded. They made a couple attempts. When you see Rafael Devers go deep, that's the emotion. You want that adrenaline going. But, man, once that adrenaline changed and went on the Rocky side, boy, they just flatlined. And to me, that just shows you what their record is, 51-73. That's the effort you got once they fell behind.
I appreciate that. So you're seeing it too, and it doesn't sound like there's much they can do given the rules around roster construction and what they can do right now.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, Paul. But thanks for the call, buddy. I appreciate it, and you're absolutely right. Let's get some pitchers that can throw strikes. I think I'd rather have a guy get a hit than a walk, and I've said that many times. Walks are free passes. Let the guy swing the bat and compete instead of trying to nibble. Thanks, Paul. Have a good day. All right, we'll take a quick break. Got a couple more calls to clear, and then I'm going to bring in my buddy Michael Ronreal, and he's going to tell me what he thinks about this Giants team and what he thinks can fix it. But we'll get back and grab a couple more calls and be back with more right here on KNBR, the Sports Leader.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys. It sound right, boys.
This is KNBR Extra Innings with former Giants right-hander Bill Laskey.
Sponsored by Lenardi's Markets of the Bay Area. Quite simply, the best.
Hear him on your Apple HomePod by saying play KNBR. Play KNBR.
Back on the Extra Inning postgame show on a Sunday with Bill Laskey. Hey, congratulations to Turner Hill as he got his first Major League Baseball hit today. What a great Major League Baseball debut yesterday, getting an RBI, and today, what a nice base hit. He got an RBI and the same thing in the third inning. Basabe got a double, and Drew Cavanaugh hit one back to the pitcher and froze the runner, and next thing you know, Turner Hill got a nice base hit to right field, dropped in, and Basabe scored. And now Turner Hill gets his first Major League hit, 1 for 3 today with a walk and an RBI. And there's a picture on Twitter right now, I say Twitter, on X, with Turner Hill with the ball in his hands. And an exciting time. He had a lot of friends and family here. And they'll be all going to Cleveland now because he's from Buckeye State. He's from southern East Florida, in Marietta, down in southern east part of Ohio. If you didn't hear it, I did an interview with Turner Hill. And it's on right now. I played it yesterday. If you want to take a listen to it, a nice introduction of Turner Hill. I caught him about a week ago in Sacramento where he was hit scalding the ball. And it really talks about the trials and tribulations of him getting to the minor leagues, signing as a free agent. He was never drafted. And the story just gets better and better as he's in the big leagues now. And he got his first Major League hit today. So congratulations to Turner Hill. All right, let's go to Sacramento and talk to Nick. Nick, you're on with Bill Laskey. You want to talk about this bullpen? I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Hey, Bill, how you doing?
Well, just a tough game. Let's just put it that way. It was ugly to watch. It was really pathetic pitching. But I'd love to hear what you have to say about what can they do to help in this bullpen.
My thought process was you don't want to scrap the season, but you're not going to be able to win anything at this point. I mean, it's really hard. The odds aren't in your favor. So why not look at your reserves down in the minor leagues, but then also you're looking ahead toward the future. Do you know of any free agents coming down from the other 29 teams who'd be a good fit? Because as your callers have pointed out, you can't really go from an 0-2 and a 1-2 and then walk a guy and your pitch count stay low, and you can't use the same guys because, as you pointed out, Keaton Wynn was used 3 days in a row, hurt his elbow. Probably my question is, who are 3 guys, because you kind of need 3, who are like, did we need you and call upon you and be ready?
Are you talking out of the bullpen? That's kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah, just like.
Are you talking about down the road? What's the question again, Nick? Is it starting pitching? Is it the bullpen? What are you trying to get here?
I'm trying to get the your bullpen, your middle relief. Your 7, 8, 9 guys. Somebody who can come in and slam the door. Like, who's your Jeremy Affeldt, your Javier Lopez, your Brian Wilson?
I don't think you have them. I really don't think you have any of them down there. You might have Dylan Smith, who's really come out of nowhere. I think he could be used to leverage. You need to get a closer. You need to get an experienced closer. The guy I'm looking at is Randy Rodriguez, who had Tommy John, who's been throwing the ball lately. He could be ready for spring training. I really think that's what Buster thought when Camilo Duvall was traded and Tyler Rogers was traded. I think he really put a lot of thoughts in some of the guys that just didn't do anything. And he really felt that, Camilo Duvall was expendable. Randy Rodriguez gets hurt, and then you go to Ryan Walker, and Ryan Walker was going to closer, and he didn't do well. And the backups to the backups, there wasn't any. And I think that's where he missed setting up the bullpen for some experienced pitchers. Now, JT Brubaker has pitched well. Today he didn't. I think he's tired. I really do. It looked like his arm was dead, forcing the ball out of his hand. You look at Sam Hedges, another guy that seems like he walks everybody when he comes in. Those are kind of the two veterans down there that you can look at. I mean, Foley is coming back from injury. He was a closer back in Detroit, but he doesn't fit into this team for future. Keaton Wynn's probably a guy that they're looking for down the road, but where does he fit in the bullpen? As a setup man, a middle guy? But right there, there really isn't that many. Carson Seymour pitched good yesterday. He's a young arm. But where do you put him? Middle relief, long relief? I think what they really need to do, Nick, is tear the whole bullpen apart and figure it out from left-handers and right-handers and see where they can go with it and see how they can rebuild the bullpen with some experienced bullpen arms, either through free agency, make a trade, things like that, because the bullpen is a mess. And as this season ends, that's probably going to be a big priority, as well as strengthening the starting rotation. Kevin Gausman could come back here. He's a free agent. Sonny Gray, a free agent. There's going to be some good starting pitchers out there, but will they want to come here? Because your team's going to be a lot of young players. They're going to look to win a World Series. They're not going to look to come here to build a team around them. That's going to be the hard part in getting pitchers here on a free agent market.
Now, if you had to just look at those relievers, starting pitchers for sure, but any relievers you see on free agency that are you could see that are realistic signings in this next season?
I would really have to dwell in it and look at it. I'm sure there's going to be a big handful of them. I have not looked at the free agent market yet. I know a couple of the starting pitchers like I threw out there. Relievers, there's going to be a handful. There's probably going to be some guys that are playing on the top-tier teams that may not get a contract, and you might be able to steal one or two. But I think the biggest thing is you've got to find an experienced closer, and that's going to be difficult to do. Edwin Diaz, who everybody wanted the Giants to get to, he has been struggling with the Dodgers. So you're taking a gamble with anybody you pick up. You're taking a gamble that they're going to come through, but at least you're trying to build a bullpen from closer to setup to middle, and that's how you got to really think and how you develop that bullpen. And that's the number one goal I would do if I was sitting up there saying, how are we going to fix this problem? Because that bullpen has been a major problem since the beginning of the season.
Right. Well, now we know what we're focusing on, along with many other things, but that's the main one.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks for the call. I appreciate it. Let's go out to Berkeley and talk to my buddy Andrea. Andrea, how are you on a Sunday?
Good, Bill. How are you?
Not good. This game wasn't that good, and a lot of terrible pitching. They played well for 5 innings, and the 6th inning was a disaster. I've never seen an inning in the big leagues like that.
Yeah, kind of the opposite of Sunday Funday. That was really very difficult to take in. And even after the game, Tony Vitello, the manager, said it was sloppy. It had the feeling of a junior college game, and rather than a big league game. And I was thinking, I think he had a team meeting. He should keep holding them. But he can be a little too nice. Libra, October 9, 1978. So I think he has to fire up the team a little bit more. And, on the positive front, Rafi Devers hit a 3-run home run. Devers delivers. That was nice to see. And Turner Hill, I saw that same picture you were talking about on X, on Twitter. And it was like, who's that? It's like, oh, it's Turner Hill.
Yeah, it was. I was glad for him. those are all the moments in baseball that, especially him not getting drafted and then going to a tryout camp and then signing with the Giants, and you're on the lowest part of that totem pole. There's so many players ahead of you, and you just have to continue to play every day, and he did. And he showed him he could hit. And each level he hit better and better and better, and in AAA he forced them to say, hey, I got a 26-game hitting streak. I can hit in the big leagues. Well, he's going to make some adjustments. I still think give him about 20, 25 at-bats, and he's going to realize the changeup's a little better up here because that's what he swung and missed on. The elevated fastball is a little more than he's expecting, and the pinching on the corners. He's got a good eye. He walked on a couple good close pitches. He's going to learn, and this is what you want him. I think he's going to be a good player. Overran that ball in the outfield. That was more of a mishap on him. But I think overall, I think the 2 games we watched him, I think there's a lot of talent there.
Yes, I agree. I think it's hopeful to bring up new talent and try to intermix it with what we already have. And it brings a lot of hope for the future because, it's kind of been a struggle here. So that was nice to see him. April 4, 1999. Yeah, a young Aries. So that was a lot of fire, a lot of energy he brought. And it was just, a very kind of challenging game. And Tony V definitely has to, do his due diligence and hold a few more team meetings and no more Mr. Nice Guy. Continue to make some changes.
Let's hope.
And so
Let's hope there's a little bit more fire in him in some of these meetings. That's what I'm hoping to see and hear, and seeing if some of this can change. I'd like to see a little bit more adrenaline, a little more focus, and stop all these fundamental mistakes and striking out too many times, put the ball in play. I wish I would have made a list, Andrea, from the beginning of the year till now and how many different things we've seen this year on the negative, because we would probably have a couple good pads of paper full of them because there's been more negative than positive in the games that we've watched. And this has to change. The fundamentals have to change. They have to get better in when the game starts. The in-game managing, the in-game playing, more communication. I'd love to see that, and that's where you teach. And I think that's what has to happen.
Yes, excellent point. And I'm a Virgo. I'm all for making lists, so I like that idea. And yeah, just kind of, he's a Libra, but he's got some planets in Scorpio. He's kind of a smiling Scorpio, but definitely has to put his foot down and have a little more intensity there.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Andrea, thanks for the call. I appreciate it. I'm going to be on Wednesday and then next weekend in Boston, so I'll be waiting for your call, Andrea. But have a great week and have a great rest of this Sunday. All right, coming up next, I'm going to sit down with a good friend, Michael Monreal. Of course, he does a lot of things on podcasts. He follows the Giants, does a great job in the minor leagues. And we're going to talk more Giants baseball with Michael coming up next right here on the Extra Inning Postgame Show on KNBR, the sports leader.
KNBR Extra Innings with Bill Laskey keeps the postgame rolling live right here.
Sponsored by Lenardi's Markets of the Bay Area. Quite simply, the best.
On KNBR 104.5 FM and 680 AM. The sports leader.
All right, back on the Extra Inning postgame show on KNBR. Giants lose the last game of a 9-game homestand, 13-7 against the Colorado Rockies. They finished the homestand 3-6. They're 4-10 in the month of August, and now they're on the road to go to 2 American League cities as they're traveling today. They'll have today off, tomorrow off, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they're in Cleveland, and next weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, they'll be in Boston. So a 6-game road trip ahead of them. All right, my guest today, Michael Monreal, and everything's going right with Michael. He does a great job covering the Giants, minor leagues, and everything you want to know about the Giants. Let's bring in Michael. Michael, how are you today?
Hey, Bill, how you doing? Glad to be talking baseball with you.
Yeah, let's talk some good baseball because this game was pathetic after the 6th inning, the walks and the wild pitch. It was different. It wasn't a good game of baseball today. Yesterday it was with Logan Webb on the hill. What did you see out of it today?
Yeah, I mean, if you would have told me beforehand that the Giants scored 7 runs against the Colorado Rockies, I would have guessed they were having a happy flight to Cleveland, but clearly that's not the case. This bullpen is a real issue like it has been all season long, and I think you'd agree with me, Bill, but it seems like it's going to be a long last month and a half of Giants baseball.
Yeah, I agree, and I don't think there's really anything that they can change. You know, they're going to stick with this 40-man roster. I think that's going to be the biggest issue, Michael. They're not going to lose people and release people and DFA people. I think this is what we're realistically going to look at. But some of these starting pitchers, especially some of the young pitchers, they have to get better and going deeper into games, and they seem like they always have one hurdle in those first 5 innings that they stumble on. What have you seen out of the starting pitchers, and why is that?
Yeah, well, it's a lot of the same thing we saw today in today's game. It's walks. I feel like a lot of the time we've seen from Blade Tidwell, from Carson Wisnut, even Trevor McDonald before he got hurt, they're walking 1 or 2 guys to open an inning, and then they get hurt by 1 hit. and then it seems like their outing is just it's kind of downhill after that. So the biggest thing is just seeing them tighten up on the command, the strike zone, and that's where a lot of the issues have come from this season. Just too many walks.
And we talk about the bullpen. I think the bullpen is getting tired. We haven't seen too many length of games from the starting pitchers, Logan Webb being one. Even Landon Roop can't even get 5 innings in anymore. And just like you said, this is what we're seeing, but I just don't know what they're going to do with some of these young pitchers if they are going to exchange them. But then the 40-man roster is pretty full. What do they do, Michael, with the new arms?
Yeah, I think right now they're going to have to ride with a lot of these same names through the next month and a half. One guy, I don't know why we haven't seen Spencer Bivens more this season. He's been fine down in AAA, and he's a guy who we've seen over the past few years come up and be able to give them 3 or 4 innings out of the bullpen. I really don't understand why he hasn't been up in the big leagues for at least a few weeks now, and it's definitely going to be a struggle to watch the Giants over the next month and a half because we've seen these bullpen struggles time and time again, and there's really no end in sight because there's not a ton of help in AAA. It's nice to see Trent Harris get up here and give some good innings. I think he can be a real piece for this bullpen moving forward if all goes well, but yeah, it's really tough to watch this bullpen, and as you mentioned, some of these starting pitchers right now.
Yeah, Michael, the question as we keep moving forward, just about the pitching side, who's going to eat up some of these innings? You're going to go into Cleveland and Boston with 2 teams that are pretty heavy on offenses. This is where it's really going to be able to use Tony Vitello and how he's going to patch some of these innings up and outs out. I remember back in my day, they used to say, don't count innings, count outs. And I think that's what he's going to have to start doing, taking a game and counting 27 outs. How are we going to get 27 outs? I think that might be a better way to do it than wondering who he's going to put in here and who he's going to do there. He used a lot of pitchers today. He used 7 pitchers today. And I was kind of surprised, but he also had a day off. So my logic, count outs, don't count innings.
Yeah, I think that's what he has to do, especially when you're not worried about saving anyone for the postseason. You're not worried about a playoff push towards the end of the season. So you can push these guys a little bit more in terms of pitch count. You're not worried about them being super effective the last few weeks of the season, and I do think that's what Tony Vitello is going to have to do. And he's definitely a guy that obviously you want to look at the players and what they can be and what some of the young guys can prove to be before 2027. But Tony Vitello is a guy who this is his time to prove that he can develop some young guys. We have a lot of the Sacramento River Cats up with the big leagues right now, and I really am going to be following what Tony Vitello does over this next month and a half.
Yeah, I'm hearing a little more meetings after the game today. He was talking about conviction, about listening and learning about yourself and trying to fix yourself. First time I've heard that. Blade Tidwell said that on his post-game remarks, that he had a short meeting and he wasn't really happy, and I'm glad to hear that. We haven't heard anything about him having meetings, and no one's really opened their mouth to say it. I was wondering if he had any meetings. I was wondering if there was any kind of, talk back, if there was anything, bring it in my office. I want to air you out. That's the kind of guy I want to come out of him right now.
Yeah, especially with what you heard from him coming out of the University of Tennessee. He was a fiery coach. He was a fiery manager at Tennessee, and it seems like we haven't really seen that through the first 4 months of the season. And like you said, we want to hear more about that. We want to hear that he's keeping those guys in check, especially the Rafael Devers, the Willie Adames, your big money guys. That was the biggest question when he came in to San Francisco coming from the college ranks is how is he going to handle the guys making $20 to $30 million a year? And now it seems like we're finally starting to see him kind of take the reins a little bit and be a big league manager.
Yeah, I'm hoping to see more of that, Michael. And on the offensive side, Drew Gilbert had a real nice game yesterday. I think he's gotten a lot better as a hitter. His professionalism now calmed down a little bit more, and I like that. His outfield play has been pretty good. Jonah Cox now sounds like that they're going to split time in center field. I was glad to see Jonah Cox back up. He hits the ball really well, but when he gets at a big league level, he has a hard time making contact. When you look at Drew Gilbert and Jonah Cox, what are their positives, and what do you think they need to work on?
Well, clearly with Drew Gilbert, that's a guy who he has been absolutely mashing right-handed pitching. Basically, since he's come up, there's a bit of a slow stretch in the middle there, but in recent weeks, he's been really, really good against right-handed pitching. And Jonah Cox, I'm sure they'll be basically the platoon for the rest of the season, and hopefully he can show you what he did. I mean, he was hitting 400 in 44 AA games before that promotion a few months ago. He went down to AAA last week and was still mashing. So I do think it'll take some time, but I really like Jonah Cox's game. I think he can bring a lot to the table. And those are two guys where if they show you enough, I think Giants fans would be okay with them being the platoon option going into next season at center field. Obviously, I think we all know Harrison Bader has likely played his last game as a San Francisco Giant after the whole Scooter debacle. But I do think Drew Gilbert can be a really fun platoon piece moving forward past this season. And if Jonah Cox can show more of that speed on the base paths, more of that defense, and then just be a league average hitter against left-handed pitching, I think the Giants do have some real pieces there.
Michael Monreal joining me on the Extra Inning Postgame Show. You can follow him at JustBB Media. Does a great job over there, and also at SF Giants Digest. You do a great job, Michael. I want to commend you on some of the things you put out there. I love reading them. Let's talk about a couple other outfielders. Of course, Turner Hill coming up from AAA with a 26-game hitting streak, hitting over 300. And then you got to look at Victor Barracuda. You know, he's had a hard time in the outfield, throwing in the wrong bases, not fielding the ball cleanly, misses the ball with the sun. He's got a cannon for an arm. He's got a good bat. Just haven't seen it quite yet. Tell me a little bit about both these two outfielders.
Yeah, well, last time I was on, Bill, we talked about, if the Giants would be okay trading Elliot Ramos, hypothetically. And obviously they ended up doing so because you had all of these outfielders supposed to come up and just give you similar production to Elliot Ramos. And, man, so far it looks like Victor Barracuda has turned into Elliot Ramos in left field because defense has not been very good in recent days. But I still have a lot of faith. Obviously these guys aren't going to be superstars, but Barracuda, he has a lot of fun tools. He can hit for power. He does have a cannon in the outfield. And then Turner Hill, I think he's really slept on, and this is a guy who is in a 26-game hitting streak at AAA, like you mentioned. And the ability to hit for average, the ability to get on base. We know that Buster Posey, Zach Manassi, and this entire regime, we know they love those guys that put the bat on the ball. And I do think that we will get a decent look at Turner Hill here.
You think about Turner Hill and the road of success, not being drafted, going through in a tryout camp and then getting signed. And look at the road he went through from A-ball to AA and AAA. And he fought against a lot of top-line draft picks, and as a pitcher like I did, you just always look at that guy. He's going to get better chance than me, so I have to perform better. And I say that's exactly what he's done at each level, and I think he's going to get it. He's going to catch fire here in the big leagues, but he's got to learn. We saw what's happened today, the changeup and the elevated fastball. He didn't see much of that in AAA, but he got schooled a little bit today.
Yeah, we'll definitely see a small adjustment period. Like you said, this is a guy who I believe played Division III baseball, was an undrafted free agent, now is making the big leagues in a few seasons. It's a really, really cool success story. That's one of the reasons we love baseball, is for hearing stories like that. But, yeah, there'll probably be an adjustment period. Obviously, you don't see the stuff you see in Major League Baseball, in AAA, in the Pacific Coast League. But if he can hit enough, if he can hit above 300, we know that this regime is going to like that. And if he does that, he could become a real piece moving forward. Guys like Jonah Cox, guys like Victor Barracuda, they're probably not going to hit for a necessarily high average. So if Turner Hill, hits above 300, I do think that Posey will probably prefer that.
Well, Michael, Marcelo Meyer looks like he's going to join the team. He was supposed to join in the early part of Cleveland. Now they're saying a rain out. They want to get more at-bats at AAA. Where do you see him fitting in? More at second base? Because would you think he's the future second baseman? They keep saying maybe not with Casey Schmidt. They don't have a position for Casey. Maybe Casey goes back to left field. The future of Marcelo Meyer, where do you see him will fit in here?
Yeah, that was actually my favorite trade of the deadline. I know a lot of people like Ramon Marquez. The Giants did get a top 100 prospect for Luis Arias, but giving up just a reliever for Marcelo Meyer, a guy who was a top 10 prospect in baseball a little over a year ago, you take that chance every day of the week. And, maybe it doesn't pan out, but like I said, all you gave up was a reliever. And I do think the Giants will get an extended look at him, especially Willie Adames obviously has been dealing with an injury for a long time. I wouldn't hate to see Adames just hit the IL. There's no point in him fighting to play every day at this point of the season, and give Marcelo Meyer an extended look there. See what he can bring to the table. See if maybe a change of scenery is all it took. He's closer to home now. He's from, the San Diego area. He's on the West Coast again. I do think there's a chance that maybe he might not become the superstar that he was supposed to be in Boston, supposed to be part of that future with Roman Anthony. But I do think there's a decent chance that he could become a above-average big leaguer for the San Francisco Giants.
Yeah, I was glad that he was in the dugout. He had some at-bats in BP. He came to the big league team. He sat with the team, watched the team. You could see him talking to different players, Matt Chapman, Casey Schmidt. Of course, Casey and him went to the same high school. I don't know the year difference. But I think he's starting to feel a little bit different. You put a new uniform on. You got new life. He's got a lot of skills, Michael. He can play defense really well. I think the big question mark is, can he hit big leagues?
Yeah, that's been the big question for him since he made his debut back in 2025. And it looks like he's healthy again. You know, his first game with the Rivercats on rehab, he had a home run to center field. That's the power is not his biggest calling card, but who knows, maybe getting healthy again, like we talked about, the change of scenery, being back home, being with his buddy Casey Schmidt, like you said, went to the same high school. We see these things happen sometimes. You talk about a Jordan Walker, a guy in St. Louis, who it takes years for sometimes these top prospects to really find themselves in the big leagues, find their footing, and maybe the Giants take this flyer and it works out in their favor for once.
Well, Michael, let's talk about that. You know, everybody said, hey, the Giants got a lot of prospects, right? And a lot of them are in Eugene, and they got to move up. When you look at the distance, when you look at the future, where do you see these prospects move up? Once a year, maybe a little bit at the end of the year? How do you focus on that, and how do you build a future with all these pitchers and fielders?
Well, it does seem like Posey and Randy Wynn, obviously, it does seem like they like keeping a group of players together, pretty similar to how Buster Posey, Madison Bumgarner, all those guys came up back in the early 2010s. It seems like he wants those guys to get comfortable with each other, learn how to win at low A, learn how to win at high A, and then once they look like they're not being challenged necessarily, that's when they get promoted. You know, obviously, we saw Joshua Gonzalez and Luis Hernandez start to dominate the Arizona Complex League. That's when they got promoted to low A. Same thing with Gavin Keelan and Dakota Jordan. Same thing goes for Bo Davidson at Parks Harbor. Once you see these guys start to dominate those levels and it looks like they're just simply not being challenged anymore, that's when you make that promotion. It seems like the Giants have had a lot of those go well this season.
A few more minutes with Michael Monreal. You can follow him on X at BYMMONREAL. He does a great job on X, putting a lot of information out. And also at SF Giants Digest. That's where I read a lot of his work, and he does a great job. You focus on the draft. You focus on the trades. You focus on how fast this team has risen in the minor leagues. They're in the top 5 now. How do you progress that? How do you make that better? And what do you see in this team, in the organization, that can build off all this young talent?
Yeah, so the Giants, it came out literally an hour ago, now have the 5th ranked system in Major League Baseball. That's the highest they've been in a very long time. And I think the article said that from 14th, where they were ranked preseason, to 5th now is one of the biggest jumps ever for a farm system. And it's honestly quite simple. Obviously, there's not going to be any trades anymore because the deadline's over. You're not going to be drafting anyone anytime soon. So now it's just the guys that have made this a top 5 system in baseball, them continuing to do what they've done. You know, Joshua Gonzalez has looked absolutely awesome in San Jose. He's actually putting up better numbers in low A than he was at the ACL, which is really encouraging. Luis Hernandez continuing to do what he's doing at 17 years old. And then you talk about the guys a little bit closer to the big leagues, like a Dakota Jordan, like a Bo Davidson, start to do better at the higher levels. And then finally, the Giants have some real pitching prospects in their system, like a Jackson Flora, a guy from UCSB drafted 4th overall, like a Ramon Marquez coming over from the Phillies in that Arias deal. There is some real talent in the system for the first time in probably 15 years, and we should be really excited about the 2028-2029 Giants.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Michael, and I tell you, I get a lot of callers saying, but Bill, they're only prospects. It's going to be years before they get here. No, you know, when you make a core, just like what you said, that core gets building, and the Randy Wynn gave me the best line. We want to see wins, but we want to see progression, and I think that's what you just said, how these players are going to progress into the next level. Final one for you, Michael, as we finish up here. You know, what can you say to Giants fans? The future is next. The future is coming up. How long will it take before you think this Giants team is going to compete with a lot of young talent?
Yeah, it obviously will take a little bit of time. It's not going to be an instantaneous thing, but who knows? Maybe with a lockout looming for 2027, it might be a little bit quicker than we think. Maybe these guys progress really well, like a Joshua Gonzalez, Luis Hernandez. These look like premier prospects, and those are guys who could be in the big leagues at 20, 21 years old. I don't think that's hyperbolic to say. We talk about guys like Bo Davidson, Dakota Jordan. Those are guys that are a little bit closer. I wouldn't be surprised to see Bo Davidson in Parks Harbor at the end of this season. Obviously, the question is, do the Giants want to start their clock with a lockout looming next season? But I do think, 2028 is probably the first season we see a lot of these names like we've talked about over the past few years, like a Bo Davidson, like a Gavin Keelan, last year's first-round pick, who's looked really, really good since his promotion to Double-A. I do think it will take a little bit of time, but yeah, I'd say maybe the back half of 2028 and then 2029 is probably the first full season we'll see a lot of these prospects we've talked about.
Boy, Michael, I can't wait, and it's going to be fun to watch how they progress through the minor leagues, and I want to thank you for your time. You do a great job, Michael, and I appreciate you jumping on with me today.
Yeah, Bill, thanks for having me. Always have a really good time talking Giants baseball with you, even when they're only one game above the Rockies in the NL West.
Thanks, Michael. Have a great rest of the Sunday. All right, coming up next, I sat down with one of the best umpires in Major League Baseball who just literally retired. Joe West is coming up next. 43 seasons he umpired in Major League Baseball, and he's the number one umpire that umpired in 5,460 games. This is an entertaining interview. We talk about Madison Bumgarner. We talk about a lot of things. So sit back. We're going to have some laughs here. Me and Joe West, talking it out right here on the Extra Inning Postgame Show on KNBR, the Sports Leader.
Bill is back.
Fired up, bringing it, all excited.
This is KNBR Extra Innings with Bill Laskey.
Sponsored by Lenardi's Markets of the Bay Area. Quite simply, the best.
Listen on your Google Home smart speaker by saying play KNBR.
Welcome back to the Extra Inning Post-Game Show with Bill Laskey. I'm really excited to bring my guest on. Of course, one of the best Major League Baseball umpires in the game. 5,460 regular season games he umpired, and he did that in 43 seasons. Let's bring in Joe West. Joe, how are you today?
Well, I'm doing good. I just got off the golf course. Of course, you knew that. You called me earlier.
Well, Joe, I appreciate your time. What a fabulous career. And you always talk about the love of the game of baseball. You definitely had it. When you look at 43 seasons, you did this every year. How did you do that? How did you stay so focused?
Well, I don't know. You know, I was real lucky. I got in, I think my first game in the big leagues, I was like 23 years old, and I had 8 games in 76. Then I had like 48 games in 77, and then I was full-time after that, and I was very lucky because I got to work with a lot of good people. I got to see a lot of different places, and you know what? I saw a lot of good baseball, too. I was very lucky that I got in at a time when the game was flourishing, and it wasn't until like 94 that they canceled the tail end of the season that one year, and things like that happened, and it was a great experience because I grew up with people that loved the game themselves. You know, one of your local guys out there, Eddie Montague. I worked the World Series with him. We used to call him the good little chief.
Well, you know, Major League Baseball players remember when they get called up. We always do. We always remember when that manager calls you in. And you just talked about it. September 14th, 1976. You got your first game. You went to Atlanta. The Braves were playing the Astros. You were doing third base that day. How do you recall that? And who told you were going to the big leagues?
Well, I was very lucky. Fred Flagg, who was the supervisor and administrator of umpires at the time, had given me some spring training games that year, and he wanted guys like myself and Eric Gregg and Jerry Crawford and Jim Quick and of course Montague. We all came up around the same time. We were, I guess me and Eric were the tail end of that group, but it was a good group of guys that came up, and when they called and said we want you to work a week in Atlanta before you go to the instruction league. See, I went to the instruction league, and I had already worked in the big leagues, and one of the kids down there at second base said, what league did you work in last? And of course I said I was in the National League. He said no.
Well, you know, you talk about coming through the minor leagues. You ended up even doing winter ball in Puerto Rico, and the Florida Instructional League one fall. The Southern League, you came up in Double-A. I played in the Southern League in Jacksonville, and then the American Association. You know, back then and there, you were driving around. You didn't fly too much.
No, we didn't fly till AAA, and it was really something else. And I can remember I worked in the Double-A with a guy named John Shulock, and I worked with him again in AAA. And I can remember when we were in the Southern League because we were tough guys. We didn't put up with anything. And we used to walk on the field and you could hear the players go, "Oh no, not them." But you know, it's really funny. When we were in the Southern League, the league president, his name was Billy Hitchcock, and he called us in his office one time and he said, "Now boys, you is two of my better umpires," and he says, "But I want you to give these ball players a chance. When they call you a name, I want you to point at them and say, 'What'd you say?' and then give them a chance to back down." And he said to give them a chance. So sure enough, that night, Shulock had to play at second base, and the guy cursed him out. And John said, "What'd you say?" And he said, "You heard me the first time." And he said, "You're right, I did." Things like that. I guess a lot of people don't really understand it. The umpire is actually part of the baseball family. And you really are part of the family, and you are there to protect both sides, to take care of everything. You don't want anybody to take advantage of the other guy. And when it's all said and done, the guys really appreciated it when you did your job the right way. And I tell people all the time, I said, you got three responsibilities. Your first responsibility is to the game of baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that might not mean the commissioner's office, but your responsibility is to the game of baseball to make sure it's played right, done right, and everything's followed by the rules that you've been given to administer. And your second responsibility is to your profession. And that might not mean the union. You might have to do things on the baseball field that are not good for the union, but they're good for your profession.
Right.
And your third responsibility is do what you know in your heart is morally honest and correct.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do those three things in that order, nothing you do will be wrong. But the problem is there's going to be people that disagree with you just because that's the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
And so you're going to get criticized no matter how good you are or no matter how bad you are. It doesn't matter because they're always looking for an excuse. And baseball is a typically American game.
Mm-hmm.
It's always somebody else's fault when it doesn't go your way. And
That's so
usually
true. That is so true, Joe. That is so true. It's never your fault. It's always somebody else's fault. The great Joe West joining me on the Extra Inning Postgame Show. As I said, you came up in 1976. When you went around the National League, was there a mentor? Was there somebody you looked up to? Because I remember back in the day, Doug Harvey was probably one of the older umpires that have been around. Did you run into him? Did you end up talking to Doug much?
Yeah, I worked with Doug. In fact, I was working with him when I was a younger umpire, and Dave Kingman and I got into a spat, and it was over a pitch in the middle of the count, and when he walked on ball four, he said something smart going to first base, and I chased him all the way down the first baseline. And between innings, Doug came down and says, "Son," he says, "on your worst day, you're going to be better at your job than the ball player is on his best days.
Mm-hmm.
So don't let them ruin your day. Do not get angry. Do not get mad. If they do something to get kicked out, you kick them out.
Mm-hmm.
If they do, you do your job and don't let them ruin your day." That was like a light going on. That was the greatest piece of advice you could ever give an umpire. Don't get angry. Don't get upset. Just go do your job. And it was the best thing he ever said to me, and I lived with it the rest of my career. And I think from that day forward, I don't think I ever yelled at anybody. I mean, I had ejections. I'd kick people out for doing what they shouldn't do, but I don't think I ever got mad again because of that piece of advice. And it was a great piece of advice. And I was actually working with him when they gave him the nickname God.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that?
Of course we do. that was the advice they gave me my rookie year. Don't ever argue with him. Just call him God, and he's always right. Well, Joe, you in your first couple of years, there was a lot of things that happened in the game of baseball. Willie McCovey's 500th home run, Nolan Ryan's 5th no-hitter, so many different things that happened in the game, and you were on the field umpiring. When these things happen, how excited were you? Because you're a fan also as an umpire, but you're seeing some nostalgic things happening, and you have to kind of hold your excitement in.
Yeah, well, the greatest part about being an umpire is you're a piece of history every day. Some days the history is a little bit bigger than the other days, but you're a piece of history every day. And when you recognize that, then you try to make it to where you want to be as good as you can be every given day. And Harry Wendelstedt used to say, you should umpire every game that you work like it's the 7th game of the World Series. And that's a true thing to tell a young umpire. Mm-hmm. Umpire like it's the greatest game on the planet. And in fact, if you remember the announcer for the Dodgers, Vince Scully, he said that Walter O'Malley told him that you're going to be announcing games in the big leagues. And he said, I want you to realize this is the best baseball in the world, and I want you to announce it the same way. Mm-hmm. And so it's like I said, it's like a family, whether it's the announcer, the ticket taker, the bat boy. I mean, it's all like a big city, and we're all in this together, and we try to make it the best we can make it. And when people say, well, the umpire is being a little overbearing, well, maybe not. Maybe he was doing it because that was his job, and somebody was acting out of line, Right. And I don't think people understand what the umpire's real part of the game is, because you're responsible for making everything happen under the rules. Mm-hmm. And that's a big deal. And when somebody gets out of line, it needs to be handled. And sometimes it just takes a little look over in the dugout, and sometimes it maybe takes a little talking to. Like
Communication, right, Joe? It's all about communication. And if you can be
exactly.
calm, if you can be calm and talk about it, I'm sure all umpires would say, hey, let me just talk this out. Let me just tell you my thoughts. And that's how it's always been, especially balls and strikes. That was my biggest thing as a pitcher. Where was it? Where was it out? Was it outside, low, high? And all of a sudden you would just say, hey, it's outside. That's all we want to know, communication.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that's
Exactly.
the key.
Exactly. And it's funny. A lot of balls and strikes is how the catcher gives you a look at the ball. I mean, I remember working behind Jerry Grody. If you missed a pitch when Jerry Grody was catching, it was your fault. Because
he was a very good catcher.
He lets you see the pitches.
Yeah.
Johnny Bench, on the other hand, he had the big broad shoulders and his head was like a size 8. If he sat anywhere other than straight behind the plate, you couldn't see anything because he was so big.
Mm-hmm.
And yet he's the one that started catching the ball out in front of him so the umpire could see it.
Wow.
And he did that for reasons because he knew he was so big that the umpire couldn't see if he caught the ball like the old guys like Yogi Berra would catch the ball inside with his arms folded, And again, he hit the catcher's mitt he designed for him to use was like a first baseman's mitt, so he could catch it out in front of him.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that he really revolutionized catching, and they don't see it because they didn't know what was going on before. But
and the thing about it, Joe, he changed his style. He changed it to help his pitching staff as well as umpires, and that's one thing. That's why he's a Hall of Famer. He did things to make adjustments in the game.
Exactly. And he didn't have any pitching.
Yeah, no, really.
when he played, Rick Rhoden told me one day, he said, "That's the only team I've ever seen that can win 100 games with no pitching."
Joe West joining me on the Extra Inning Post Game Show. Joe, you talk about the longevity of your career. Injuries always take place. You guys are out there 2, 3, 4 hours sometimes. Fans don't understand. You're standing the whole time. Knees, back, hips. What were some of the injuries you had to overcome?
Well, I've had both knees replaced.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had foul tips and stuff. I think the worst I ever got hurt, I got hit with a Nolan Ryan fastball that the catcher missed.
Oh, my.
and it hit me in the forearm. I thought it broke my arm. But and that's another thing. You can't act like you were hurt. You can't ever let them think
Don't rub it, right, Joe? Don't rub it. We'll take a quick break with Joe West and bring you back with that legendary stare down with Madison Bumgarner. That's next, right here on KNBR, the sports leader.
The game may be over, but we know you want to talk more ball. So KNBR Extra Innings with Bill Laskey continues.
Sponsored by Lenardi's Markets of the Bay Area. Quite simply, the best.
We are KNBR 104.5 and 6.8, the sports leader.
Welcome back to the Extra Inning Postgame Show. More with Joe West. Well, you know, the couple things that Giants fans are always going to talk about, of course, it happened September 24, 2015 in San Diego. Madison Bumgarner got a little upset about a couple pitches, and you and Madison had a little stare down. Now, I looked at this. You grew up in Asheville, North Carolina. Madison grew up in Hudson, North Carolina. There's about a 70-mile difference here, about two North Carolinians pretty much staring each other down. I know you remember this. It was pretty level-headed. But did Buster Posey ever say anything to you? Because it didn't look like he was even in the middle of it.
No, he didn't say a word. I just said, just sit down. It'll be over in a minute.
And it was entertaining. It really was. John Miller said, "Oh, is he going to throw him out? I just want to know."
Yeah.
You know.
Well, the funny thing is, I think Madison was upset because he walked the guy. He might have been upset about a pitch earlier, but he wasn't upset about that one. He knew he didn't throw it over the plate, so he was mad and he used profanity. And I didn't want to kick a guy out of the game for using profanity audible to the fans if he's a starting pitcher. And so I just stared at him. So he got the message, and we went on about our way. So,
well, there was another thing, Joe. There was another thing you and Madison happened. It was July 28, 2019. He was hitting, and strike three was called, and he forgot to count. And he stepped back in the box, and you said, "Madison, that's three strikes." And you guys both start barrel laughing. And Madison was trying to smirk it out, but he was laughing going back to the dugout. You had a hell of a grin on your face. It was a funny moment, but it kind of broke the ice, too.
Sure, yeah. And you look at how great these competitors were. I mean, I was lucky. I came up at the right time to see some great baseball. And I was lucky. I worked with great umpires. I worked with great players.
Yeah.
And great pitching. I mean, I don't know if they came any better than Tom Seaver. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there were anybody more dangerous than J.R. Richards.
Yeah.
Maybe Randy Johnson, but Bert Blyleven probably had the best curveball. And I mean, you just go down the line, and I was there for all this. I mean, I was there so long I had Joe Torre as a player.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, you know, when you think about 43 seasons, all the Hall of Famers you were behind a plate or calling on the field, but you also threw 196 ejections, and 196 pretty high on there. But I was looking at some of the players you rung up, and I was really surprised to see Tony Gwynn on there. I faced Tony Gwynn many years. He never said anything. What was he complaining about that you tossed him?
I think he had declared bankruptcy that morning. He didn't want to play.
He was angry, huh?
Yeah, I don't think he wanted me, because I think Larry Bowa was his manager. and when I threw him out, Bowa came out and said, "What did he say?" He said that if I thought that was a strike, I was going to have to eject him, so I kicked him out. and Bowa said, he turned and started yelling at Tony, "You didn't tell him that, did you?"
Well, of course,
I think it was a run.
Too. Joe, managers always got in your face. And the other thing, communication, until they started getting a little excited. Earl Weaver was one of them. Of course, Bobby Cox was the most one that got tossed. And they were so mild at first, right? And then they got that heat on. Then they started coming at you. You know, when you think about it, was it verbal abuse? Was it just arguing with you? What were most of the reasons that you ejected these managers?
Well, some of them were violations of the rule. Like I'd kick Chuck Taylor out because he'd take up for the pitcher just threw at somebody, and there were automatic ejections that you had to kick people out. And I can remember one of my later years that I had to kick like 6 ball players out of a game for a beanball incident. So how can those totals be accurate, you know, when you're looking at 43 years and 196 ejections? So you divide that, that's not that many if you think about it. And then not only that, they gave me an ejection on that retro sheet that you looked up that was Don Zimmer. I didn't kick out Don Zimmer. Doug Harvey did.
Well, Joe, you had 3 All-Star games, 1987, '05, and 17. The first one had to be excited because you were still young. Do you remember the
Yeah.
All-Star game? Do you remember some of the things that really made that exciting for you and your family?
Well, I can remember that my mom and dad got to go, and at the time I was married to a flight attendant, and my mother was on an elevator with Gary Carter, and she asked Gary for an autograph, and Gary made a very nice response and said, I work for a company that when I sign an autograph, it has to be paid for so that all the money goes to charity and all this stuff. And he was being very polite. And of course, he didn't know who this lady was.
Right.
And so my wife said, let me get this straight. You don't want to sign Joe West's mother's baseball? And he says, give me that ball, man.
That changed it right there. Well, 6 times you got into World Series, and you ended up umpiring the 2012 World Series that the Giants were in, a very good World Series. What were some of the key points in these World Series? Were there really some points that you could remember that really caused a little rumpus in the games?
Well, that World Series, if I remember, was over in 4 games, wasn't it? Didn't
Yes,
they
it
play
was.
the Tigers?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I remember the big first baseman for the Tigers ran over and dove for a ball. And, I mean, just all that looked like Superman trying to catch the ball, and he crashed into the ground. He didn't catch the ball. And so I went over to Brian Gorman, who was the first base umpire, and I said, tell him not to do that anymore. And he says, what do you mean? I said, we're on a fault line out here, and that guy could cause us to all fall in the ocean. Tell him not to be diving for the ball anymore. And they had mic'd all the umpires. And of course that made their audio for the replay. They were doing a video of the umpires working the World Series, and it was called The Third Team.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that was one of the first things they cut out of the thing. So I was upset about that.
Yeah, I got to watch that. That was really entertaining, and I think a lot of fans needed to see and hear some of the things that we're communicating on the field. I thought it was really intriguing. Joe West joined me for a few more minutes on the Extra Inning postgame show. Of course, Joe, Country Joe, your music career, of course, was flourishing as you were umpiring. Was that difficult for you to kind of change back and forth, or was that more relaxing for you?
No, that really helped me because I had things to do other than just 24 hours a day umpiring.
Right.
It was really relaxing, and I got to meet a lot of people. I mean, Mickey Gilley was a friend of mine. Boxcar Willie, I was a pallbearer at Boxcar Willie's funeral, and I met the boys from Alabama, and in fact, I just saw Randy Orton's daughter in Nashville about 3 weeks ago. We did a podcast together. And this profession opened a lot of doors for me. I mean, it was crazy. I actually sang on stage with Merle Haggard and the Oak Ridge Boys, and I mean, it's been a lot of fun. Really has been. And I got a call from a guy that runs the Nashville Palace one time. His name is Barrett Hobbs, and I knew his father, who's when he started the Nashville Palace, Randy Travis was his dishwasher.
Wow.
And he called me one day and he says, you know Gene Watson? And I said, yeah. He said, good, you're opening for him.
Well, Joe, after 43 seasons, it's not just the friendships of umpires, it's the friendship of players and fans. And I think that's the biggest thing that really concludes a great career of yours. When you can name one city that you always loved going to, and the reason why, was it Chicago? Was it Los Angeles? What was that city that you said, hey, I'm going there, I'm going to have a good time?
Well, you know what? People ask me all the time, what was your favorite stadium?
Oh, that's even better.
And I would say before the lights, it was Wrigley Field. And of course, people today don't know that when I started, Wrigley Field didn't have lights.
Right. Same here.
And so
I was pitching in all those day games too. It was a different ballpark.
Yeah, and they would say, well, why is that? And I'd say, because if it got dark, you could quit. You were done.
Suspend the game, right?
But Anyway, and Wrigley Field was not one of our better stadiums. It was a hard stadium where you had ivy in the outfield. The ball got stuck out there and all that stuff. And they had the baskets. It was a hard ballpark to work in.
Mm-hmm.
But when they didn't have lights, when it got dark, you were ready to quit. It was over, you know.
Yeah, and it was overcast sometimes, and it was difficult at times to see out there.
Yeah, but your stadium there in San Francisco is beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. The one in Pittsburgh's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these new ones are really good. The one they built in Seattle where they can close the roof, that was very nice because they have a lot of weather up there.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to close. But the stadium that has survived the test of time is probably Dodger Stadium
Mm-hmm.
because they have one way in and it circles around to the left. And then it's really funny when he built the place, he decided that if you have parking on the third base side, you know, and your tickets are on the third base side, that's where your parking place is.
Yeah.
I mean, it was designed by a baseball guy for baseball, and it's got 3 major freeways where you can get in and out of there. So after the game, the traffic's moving good and gets out of there. You go to Pittsburgh, you can't get out of there. It's
You're
hard
right.
because there's no outlets to get out. But Dodger Stadium, the guy Walter O'Malley, when he put that together, that was genius. And it's probably, and it's one of our oldest parks. It might be the 3rd oldest park we have. And it's still one of the better facilities that we have. But I can remember working in Candlestick Park.
Oh yeah,
where it was colder there in the summertime than it was in North Carolina in the winter.
Coming down that tunnel, that was the biggest thing we had to deal with on and off that field. But Joe, what a delight I got a chance to talk to you today, and what a fabulous career. Enjoy retirement, and again, thank you for your great time today.
Oh, it was a lot of fun. Stay in touch.
All right, that
Take
was
care.
Joe West on the Extra Inning Post-Game Show. More coming up right here on KNBR, the Sports Leader.
You're listening to the former Giants righty. It's KNBR Extra Innings with Bill Laskey.
Sponsored by Lenardi's Markets of the Bay Area. Quite simply, the best.
Heard on your Apple HomePod by saying play KNBR.
Welcome back to the Extra Inning postgame show as we close out a Sunday. Giants lose a tough one at Oracle 13-7. Their homestand goes 3-6. Now they go to Cleveland and Boston for a 6-game road trip before they come back home to face the Cincinnati Reds and the Arizona Diamondbacks. I want to thank my two guests, Michael Monreal and Joe West. If you missed either one of those interviews, they'll be on the All KNBR podcast. I want to thank my producer, Ryan McCarthy, did a great job, as well as you Giants fans for calling in. I'll be on Sports Phone postgame show on Wednesday, and the Extra Inning postgame show will be on next Saturday and Sunday. Have a great week of baseball, and more coming up right here on KNBR, the sports leader.
It's another great outing for the righty on your home of San Francisco Giants baseball. KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader. Play KNBR on iHeart.